morning and welcome back to Fresh Brew Marketing's YouTube channel. In today's In Conversation With, I'm talking with Gary Bartelings, the owner of Beyond Capricorn, a travel company based here in Beminster in Dorset. And we're talking a little bit more about the travel industry in the UK and what Gary thinks travel is going to look like in future. Stay tuned, it's coming up just after this. Good morning and thank you, Gary, for joining me in today's conversation with us. It's good to have you here and it's good to actually see you after quite a few weeks of not seeing you.
Thanks, Kathy. Good to see you too.
Good. So I want to just jump straight in. So, I mean, Beyond Capricorn is travel orientated. I mean, there's no other way of explaining it. And travel all over the world has been seriously hampered by the lockdown and by the coronavirus, and not just physically going, but also people's attitudes towards travel and what that looks like in future. And it's pretty much been shut down, with serious movement restrictions all over the world. But Beyond Capricorn, so your travel business is aimed at creating travel experiences for people. So talk to me, just get us started. Talk to me a little bit about the travel industry at the moment, and going beyond the obvious. So we can't physically move. How has the travel industry been affected by the lockdown, maybe if not now, loss of revenue, but for much a longer period than just what the lockdown would allow?
Well, thanks, Kathy. It's one of those interesting things. I think is that the travel industry is not the only industry that gets I guess hit with this sort of quite significant world event. At the same time, the industry will always talk about the fact that they get sort of hit by different things over the years, whether it's the Icelandic ash cloud, whether it's 9/11. There's many sort of natural and geopolitical issues that challenge travel. Nothing quite like what we're experiencing now, though. But because of that, and that's probably very relevant, because of that, I think the industry has been fairly slow in many ways to fully appreciate and comprehend what was hitting them. And I think as a result of that, there's been limited coordination between the different industry bodies initially. That's getting better now, but I think they lost a few valuable weeks getting their house in order. And of course, the general market at the moment, as you know and pointed out, is the consumer is not wanting to commit to travel. I'm not saying they don't want to travel. I think that's a really clear distinction, but they're not committing to it. They might explore, they might inquire, but they're not committing. And I think that's the reality of the industry at the moment. Like many others, I think, in the current situation, is that the travel industry is on life support with the different opportunities that the government is offering, whether it's furloughing staff, whether it's grants or loans. They're on life support, and I think once that gets disconnected at some stage, which has got to happen, we might see a number of businesses not making it. I have no doubt about that. So that's sobering in many ways. And the question, of course, is could the travel industry have done anything different? I don't think so. In the end of the day, apart from perhaps a fair bit of misinformation, generally speaking, people are saying the best thing to do is stay at home and I'm not going anywhere. So yeah,
it's interesting because just looking, here in the UK, we've been having the most amazing sunny weather, and certainly I've almost felt since Monday there's been a real change in terms of perception of lockdown, and this severe staying at home-ness has kind of changed. You look at some of the scenes of people flooding to the beaches and that kind of thing. We all have a desire to get out and to get back and busy and doing something. So it's really interesting that you point out that we want to travel, but our commitment is not quite there. I think that's a really good thing to distinguish.
Yeah. Look, and it's you start seeing that in what travel companies are doing. If you think about where is the travel industry going to head, is looking at ways of alleviating the concerns of the financial commitment by providing very generous cancellation terms and book now for next year and don't pay till later, because everybody's desperate to get those bookings in. And I think there'd be a very clear-cut line between those people that have always been really into travel and can't wait to do it again, and will, within reason, take some risk, To those that for who travel is sort of one of those things they might do every year, but if it doesn't happen, it doesn't matter. Who might say, I'm staying at home. I can holiday quite well in the UK, which of course is true. Why would I get on a plane with hundreds of other people?
Yes.
I think with that, as an industry, that very specifically around things like aviation, if you want to leave the UK, it's the hygiene, the safety, how am I going to get there without actually picking something up on the way is probably going to be in everybody's mind. And more importantly, I think for many, what if I pick something up on the other side and they won't let me back on the plane?
Yeah. So that actually brings me to a good point. And talking about the pivoting or the adapting of businesses, and you just mentioned now, generous cancellation policies, etc. That makes complete sense to me. And certainly in some of the interviews that I've been having recently, a lot of the discussion has been around how industries are changing, a lot becoming a lot more digital. Specifically what comes to mind is a conversation I had with an event professional in the event and exhibitions industry, which is built on the physical face-to-face, and how they've had to kind of introduce these hybrid digital models of virtual exhibition spaces and networking sessions, something that's never really been done before. Have you seen anything similar happening in the travel industry in the way that travel agents and travel companies and travel, people that plan these physical face-to-face experiences in situ, whether it's local or abroad, have you seen any examples of where they've had to drastically change the way they do things and how they do things?
Look, it's interesting. I think we're possibly, as a travel business, relatively small in comparison to some of the very big operators in this country. And there you do see some really interesting, innovative stuff happening. One operator, for example, you can now do a Zoom consultation about your holiday plans. Sit at home, they'll dial in or get you to get onto a meeting and talk through about your plans. So you're seeing the person you're going to book with, which I think for a lot of people is still quite important. They don't want to phone up. It's the virtual equivalent of going to a travel agency and sitting in front of someone. And I can see more and more of that happening towards a consumer base in a much more agent, tour operator, hotels, destination scenario. A lot of companies are doing, we get something probably every day, webinars about their products. Learn about your destinations, your hotels, the services whilst we're in this period, so that when you come out, you're well equipped to deal with potential inquiries about places that people want to travel to. So I see a lot of that.
Yeah, and just taking it on a tangent for a second, what do you think about business travel? Do you think business travel will be as much as it was before, or do you think people are seriously taking another look at, is it really necessary to make that trip?
I possibly I'm the only one that, about 6 months ago, never heard of Zoom before, apart from the very bad side. I think it's taken over. But I read a very interesting article about that. Death by Zoom meetings. And I'm personally one of those people. I think that the face-to-face sitting with a person, whether it's in a smaller group or a larger group, I don't think there is a substitute for it. And in many ways, when we set up Beyond Capricorn almost 2 years ago, everybody was saying, why would you set up a travel agent? People do everything online or on the phone. No, the personal interaction, I think, is much more important. You can actually really determine what people want. Saying that, in a business environment, having the ability to have a conference call and go through some topics where you don't have to be in front of each other every time, I think is something that will stay. I was talking to the managing director of KFC. You go, why would you talk to the managing director of KFC? They are one of our clients, and she was talking about the fact that in her business, where she used to go and travel, a lot of their high level executives travel around the world all the time, miles and miles of flight, staying in hotels all across the Tasman, and they're really reviewing that, whether that's still necessary. So I think meeting with people will still be there, but at the level it was before, potentially not.
And I think the same applies to actually physically working in locations. Same thing. We've proven that we are able to work remotely and that we can still keep things going. Without having to be in a physical location. So talking about looking at future travel for a second. How do you think this has affected our attitudes towards travel? Yes, you mentioned those people who desperately love to travel, but there's also, just before we came on, we were speaking about a slight nervousness now. People, who don't necessarily want to commit, and the importance of the role that you, as a travel company, play, especially now, where it's not about booking, but it's also about managing bookings that have already been made and that kind of thing. So, how do you think the whole attitude towards tourism and travel rather, and specifically using organizations like yours to facilitate that, how do you think those attitudes have changed?
I think it's going to be very segmented into demographics, where I think the younger people, potentially the younger families, might still be looking forward to a couple of weeks in the sun in the summer, and I don't know if that's going to desperately change. The older generation, more mindful potentially of the fact that they are a risk group, will be, I expect, very reliant on what's happening around their travels in way of safety, health, social distancing, all those sort of things. And then within those groups, you can break it down again. I was talking to a company yesterday, and they're a very big travel organization, and actually we're growing very rapidly in the last sort of 2 years. They're going right back size-wise, they believe, to what they were before. And one of the things they said is that their clientele is generally speaking older. It's a more mature traveller, and they said where in the past those people would book 2, 3, maybe 4 trips with us, our expectation is that they will do 1 trip a year.
Wow.
And limiting the risk. And of course, also the other thing that is hanging over all our heads is the economic fallout. And where maybe the older generation is less impacted by that. They'll have kids, grandchildren that might be, kids that lose jobs, need assistance with children care or anything like that. And so I think that there's a whole number of factors on that. Well, I don't think what will change is that the desire of some people still to want to see places. But, you say to somebody, oh, let's wonder, we're going to this trip, we're going to see, we're going to Venice. You're going to sit on the little, square and have a coffee. You sort of go, well, yeah, but what the bloke next to me's got the disease. And I think that will be in people's minds more and more, certainly until there is a vaccine where people feel there is a safety net. Right?
And that's interesting, because I was also speaking to someone regularly who's recently, who said the same thing. Yes, we may have the longer trips and the bigger holidays and that type of thing, but these small little quick weekend breaks here and there, she particularly thought those are going to be, if not a thing of the past, then certainly something that's going to become far less frequent.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think there's going to be an interesting thing between people won't be choosing the sort of the city break, perhaps Friday to Sunday. They might also not be looking for a 28-day trip away to something like Australia. But something in the middle, and it's one of the things that we're working on a little bit, is when you start traveling again, what would you be looking for? You probably don't want to be too far away from home for too long. So anything, it's 10 days is probably, that's just about good. You don't want to be in a place where you feel you're going to struggle coming back if there is a problem. And you're probably going to be looking for an experience that is not necessarily cocooned, but controlled. So things like, and you're starting to see a lot of it coming through now, a private villa as opposed to a hotel. Stay with the family and potentially friends. Or rent a villa for a week or 10 days. Or perhaps even a yacht, if you're in that sort of, you like that sort of stuff, a cruise yacht where everything is done for you, and it's all again controlled. I think that's what people will be looking for. As a matter of fact, we've been talking, part of what we do as well as private jets, is is a company saying we really want to come up with those sort of ideas where people can, if they have the financial means, charter a jet and control the whole experience. And I think we'll have that for a period of time.
Yeah. And so tell me a little bit more beyond Capricorn. How have you guys had to adjust yourselves, to this phase? I'm sure you've taken on many different kinds of roles than what you usually would.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we I guess we've been in this industry for a long time. So in many ways, as I said before, 9/11, the Icelandic ash map, we've dealt with these sort of crises in the past. But granted, this one is much more significant than before. But I think the first thing you do is you control your cost. We've got a very low cost base, so we control our cost. And then you start thinking about what else can you do? What is the opportunity? If the opportunity is not this year, is there an opportunity in the future? And we've been quite fortunate, actually. We've actually just released effectively a new business over the weekend called Grand Historic Tours. And Grand Historic Tours it started way before this crisis in a discussion following some introductions by Silvana from the Ororot with the people from Mapperton Estate. We've been talking and working with them, and over the weekend we launched the Grand Historic Tours, where we're doing something that we don't tend to do. We're about going abroad with our travel company. This is in the UK. It's travelling through to staying at the Mapperton Estate, staying at Eastnor Castle in Newley Hall over a 10-day period. Granted, mainly aimed at probably the US market.
Yeah.
The first booking was from a person in London. So we're trying to, which is always what we've done in the past as well, reinvent. What's the next thing? What are people looking for? How do we present that? And in all of that, remain very positive, because it's so easy to get yourself down and say, oh, well, it's all a disaster. But you can't let that happen again. And the great thing, of course, with travel is it's a positive thing. Ultimately, regardless of the period we're going through now, most people are excited about travel.
I actually saw your post recently, specifically, and that instantly caught my attention, because I think naturally I love to travel too, and where I immediately want to look at new places where I haven't been and start booking, I have become a little bit more cautious, a little bit more conservative, maybe, in my flamboyancy of just saying, let's jump on a plane and go. And so when I saw that, it immediately went, hang on, and it did appeal to what I can control, which is interesting what you say, because the whole coronavirus thing has made us all feel out of control. Rules have had to be made for us. We've had to abide by certain regulations. Some of us are able to work, some of us can't, all that kind of stuff. And so a lot of the anxiety, many people feel, has been this whole feeling of, it's my fate is not in my own hands. I could be anywhere. And so when I saw your post, or Beyond Capricorn's post about this, the historic places, I kind of thought that appealed to me, because instantly I thought it ticked my exploring something unknown box, but also it made me feel, okay, it's still something that I feel comfortable with. So I saw that, and it looks great.
Yeah, no, it's very much, those are the sort of things I think, when you start writing down the key elements of what people are looking for. And as I said, things like, a private aircraft, if you can afford it, a private villa, renting a sailing yacht with a skipper or something like that, are the areas, or even people getting a camper van and driving themselves, and, with all on board. I mean, those are the sort of things I think that will get demand for. And I think, sadly, to some extent, a lot of that will be for those that are financially better off. If you've been furloughed, or worse, you've lost a job, I think you're going to find it difficult to get traveling again. But the other thing I keep reminding myself and others is that at least it's not something that's just impacting the UK. It's a worldwide thing.
It's a global thing.
We're all in the same boat. We all have the same interests and reasons to make it better again, and that's encouraging. I think that helps.
It is. You're absolutely right. And Gary, I ask everybody that I interview this, but what lessons have you learned, or what anecdotes can you share about this weird time that will stay with you, and that will kind of that will determine how you move forward and how you strategically plan your business going forward?
Well, the first thing is working from home is not what it's all cracked up to be.
Hallelujah! Yes.
Forget that one, and I don't mind, but I miss being in our office where people will walk in, there's interaction, so I miss that. But I think the other thing that we've always said, and when we started Beyond Capricorn, it was very much also should we or shouldn't we do it,
yeah.
and is to have a diverse portfolio of interests, whether it's business or personal interest, that keeps you going. If you're in travel in particular, if you just have one sort of type of travel company, you can be hit hard. And if you've got some diversity, that's good. And then, work your contacts. I mean, that's one of the things that I've done is just, Zoom, as I said, I mean, I'm tired of Zoom, but zoomed out a little bit. But the number of Zoom calls I've had over the last few weeks has been extraordinary. And the other thing is, it's a great opportunity to get your house in order. Just to make sure, get your admin up to date, do this sort of stuff, and boring stuff, you never make the time for it when you're busy with things that you really like to do. But it's a great opportunity to get yourself in order and then spend time. We've had brainstorming sessions over Zoom about products, about services, about how we market ourselves. For the first time, we had a video for Beyond Capricorn. We've never done that before. We never thought we would. But we could do it, and it was a really nice, subtle message. As a matter of fact, it was picked up by Harper's Bazaar, and they put it on their website. So we're suddenly going, that's just lovely. And it again, creating that sort of time, because you've got the time for it, says, actually, we need to do more of that going forward, because it is actually a really good tool to attract people. So I think it's a good way, because your day-to-day normal work is not as intense as it normally is. So it's a great opportunity to catch up on these sort of things.
Yeah, and I think it does. You're absolutely right in that. I think there's certain things that we overlook because we're so busy running our business today. We overlook the basic housekeeping, and even to a large degree with some of the clients that I work with on a marketing basis, that you kind of overlook certain things, the things that you say, I'll get to it when I have time, but actually it's that stuff that carries you through the difficult times. It's that kind of stuff that keeps you front of mind, and it's that stuff that keeps you innovating and thinking differently, and that helps you, like now, to be able to go, okay, it's a bit of a rough situation, let's change, what else can we do, as opposed to getting stuck and not being able to develop.
But it's very easy, I think, in this sort of situation, to talk yourself into a really deep hole and find it very hard to come out. And of course, I'm sure for many people, some days are better than others. But getting up with as positive possible attitude and have little wins hopefully along the way that really encourage you to. And we've been fortunate. We've had some tough days where we sort of go, oh, really, I'm over it now, as we all are. But we are, as I said before, we're very lucky. We work in an industry where it's fun what we do. Well, we think it is anyway. Travel is fun, but there you go.
Yeah, absolutely right. Well, listen, Gary, thank you so much for chatting and sharing your insight. And I love these conversations because I just keep learning, and I keep, there's insight about how I handle, even my own work. So thank you for sharing your insight with us today. I really appreciate it.
Great to talk, Kathy, and we'll stay in touch. And if there's anything else we do, we'll hear from you.
Absolutely, and I look forward to seeing you back in Bemster soon. For everybody who's watching this video, thank you so much. If you want to find out about the next video, make sure that you subscribe to the channel. But if you want to get in touch with Gary, I will put all of Beyond Capricorn's details in the description of the video as well, so you can get in touch and plan your next wonderful experience. But until we see each other again, and thanks again, Gary, take care and be good.
You too. Take care.